welcome. My name is Geneviève Zubrzycki. I'm Associate Professor of Sociology, and I'm Director of the Copernicus Program in Polish Studies and the Weiser Center for Europe and Eurasia. And this afternoon I have the great pleasure and honor to introduce our distinguished speaker for the 2016 Copernicus lecture. But before I do so, I would ask everyone, although the signal is very bad in this room, I would still ask you to turn off your cell phone or to silence it just to make sure. Thank you. Robert Biedroń, mayor of Słupsk in northwestern Poland, near the Baltic Sea, in case you could not locate it on the map, is an LGBT activist and a member of the Congress of Local and Regional Authorities of the Council of Europe. He obtained his master's degree in political science, and in spite of his heavy administrative duty as mayor of Słupsk and also as an activist, he's pursuing a PhD in political science. I was very surprised to learn about this. So congratulations, lots of stamina. He also is the co-founder of the long-standing, he's the co-founder, and the long-standing president of the Warsaw-based NGO called Campaign Against Homophobia, an organization that protects the constitutionally guaranteed rights of sexual minorities in Poland. From 2011 to 2014, he was elected member of the Polish Parliament, serving as vice chair of the Justice and Human Rights Committee and serving as a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. He was the first openly gay parliamentarian in Poland and actually in East Central Europe. And even though he broke an important glass ceiling then, he remains today the only openly gay elected official in Poland and the region. So it is a lonely place for him. Biedroń's civic engagement and public service started with LGBT issues but did not stop there. He's active in the animal rights movement. He served as a consultant to numerous human rights organizations both in Poland and abroad, and he participates also in the advisory group on gender, forced displacement, and protection that was launched by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, so also very important and very acute issues today. While active at the local and transnational levels, Biedroń remains a key public figure in national politics, taking part in recent protests against the current conservative government led by the Law and Justice Party and acting as a vocal supporter of women's fight for their reproductive rights in light of new bills proposed to restrict those rights. We're incredibly happy to have him with us in Ann Arbor. We spent 2 amazing days with you. It was really, truly a pleasure to have you with us. And we're honored that he generously accepted to give the 2016 annual Copernicus lecture. So please join me in welcoming Robert Biedroń.
All right, here it starts. Good evening, everyone. I feel honored and privileged to stand in front of you at this very special moment of annual Copernicus lecture. I've seen so many videos of people presenting here their lectures, very noble, important people coming from Central Eastern Europe and Poland especially. So pardon me for my English, for being a bit nervous, even though I'm a politician and I'm used to speaking in front of my electorate. I feel really the pleasure of importance of this evening. I'm very happy that I'm here, and I never dreamt I will have ever opportunity to stand in front of people and talk about issues which for me seemed to be very important during whole my public career. So this is also a very important moment for myself. I start this presentation with a picture of little me. I know I've changed. I'm 40 then. It's me. And I wanted to show you this picture because I went a long way through to be here as a 40 years old man, a public person, as it was said by Jivien. And I want to share my experience, but talking about broader context of sexual minorities and in general civil movements in Poland. I was born and raised in southeastern part of Poland. Why I say it? Because while watching all these lectures, I've noticed that those lectures have also self-confessional character. When I heard Agnieszka Holland and others, they were sharing their experiences. And I think it's very important. It gives strength and motivation, especially if you come from minority group. And the topic of this year's meetings and lectures are the minority groups, and we need strength and motivation and support. So I will share my story, and I will be a little bit self-confessional during this speech. So I was born there in this conservative Poland, and as it was said before, very monoethnical, monoreligious, monocultural, monosexual, which is not true, but we think so, Poland. And I thought that I'm the only gay in the village, like in the Little Britain series, you know that. I thought that there is nobody else than me who is gay when I was finding out. I was also atheist. Being atheist in Poland, probably like in America, is a big, big sin. So I felt very alone. I was growing up in the forest. So I've seen wolves, I've seen bears, I've seen lynxes, but I've never seen anyone gay. But I read a lot. I'm glad I'm at the university that I can share with you this wonderful experience of reading books, which seem to be disappearing nowadays. But because of reading books, I had dreams. And I knew, even out, that in most of the books it was written that I'm a sinner, that my homosexuality, as it was said, is a perversion. I knew from other books that they're wrong. That there is another world somewhere far, far away from my forest, where there are happy gays, where people are free, where people are equal and they can do what they do. So, because of the books, I started to dream. I started to dream that I will go away of this little town and I will meet those happy gays. I will meet this other world I read in the books. And it happened. And I will share you a bit of my story. But let's come to medieval times. Those are sinners, those Sodomites. I will tell you about the past, which I don't remember, but it's very important in the context of sexual minorities we'll talk tonight. Sodomites, I could not translate it into English, and I beg you for forbiddance, but they had so many names which preserve in big part until now. So we were Samcołożnicy. We came from Turkey, and we were a Turkish shame. It's in every nation. Every nation accuses their neighbors or other nations for spoiling their tradition and their citizens. So Polish people thought that it came from Turkey. And the Turkish people probably thought that it came from Syria or another country. Like you Americans think that homosexuality came from France or this perverted, spoiled Paris. So we thought it's from Turkey. And we had a lot of names for that. And few centuries later, a very important discourse became in interwar Poland between the First and Second War appeared the first intellectuals who were calling for equality of LGBT people. They were not calling, of course, for equality of LGBT people. They were calling for equality of Sodomites because they did not know any other word. Or, as Tadeusz Boy-Żeleński was describing in his critics, sexual minorities, the word we were using today. So they were the pioneers of the public discourse in Poland. Another important factor also for me, because I'm not imprisoned, as you can see, was the criminalization of homosexuality. And the story started in France in 1791 with the Napoleon's Code, and Poland, enlightened by the changes in France, Belgium, Netherlands, adopted very progressive penal code, which decriminalized something what was criminalized, but as I would say, our colonizators, Germans, Russians, and Austro-Hungarians, because those were people representing our civilization who were who penalized homosexuality around the world. Still, there is more than 70 countries penalizing homosexuality, and in some of them you can be sentenced to death. There is death penalty for homosexual intercourses. And you see the story. It started in 1791 with France, and it ended just 2 years ago in Europe. Northern Cyprus was the last territory in Europe which decriminalized homosexuality in 2014. So for many people, what I do with my partner, with whom I am for 14 years, should be criminalized. And half of the Polish population, according to the recent survey conducted a few years ago, but there is no new one, would like to introduce the legislation which will penalize homosexuality. So we still think about homosexuality as a crime. So I stand with you because I'm not penalized also. Homosexuals in communism, they existed. Even though communism was pretending that homosexuals do not exist, they were there, of course. The literature was in Poland quite progressive comparing to other countries, the communist bloc. So from time to time, communist censorship were allowing to do the movie, for example, Siegfried, which was talking about homosexuality, that could, the movie or the book could have something on homosexuality. But, of course, communist system was very aware that they wanted to control. So in 1985, the Operation Hyacinth started. It's a very legendary operation where 11,000 homosexuals in Poland, they were taken from their houses, from their workplaces, from universities, from dormitories, to the militia offices, and investigated whether they had anything to do with minors, and whether they have any contacts with the gay milieu. Why? Because there are few theories on that. One of them says that communist regime wanted to have under control the spreading AIDS disease. They thought that, as in America, they thought that homosexuals are responsible for spreading disease. And they wanted to have it under control. This is one theory. The second theory is that at those times, solidarity movement became very strong already. And they thought that within the homosexuals there might be many people who conspire, because our milieu in oppressed communist times were underground, which was natural. So they thought if they control this situation, they will get to the people collaborating with solidarity movement. We still don't know what were the real reasons of the operation, but it played very important role for future. In Polish archives, they are still, and we don't know how many, but there are still archives on homosexuals from this period of time. And in the 90s, when Poland retrieved its independence, there was a famous battle on these archives. Famous politicians, also for law and justice, leaders, were very much interested in destroying the data. And it was described by newspapers that they wanted to get into these archives, to get rid of their documents. Today, the access to this data is very limited, but they are still existing. So, in 1987, the first homosexual movement started. This is the logo. The Warsaw Homosexual Movement started. It was the first homosexual, I use this word on purpose because this was the word which was used at this time, organization. The first magazines started to appear. They were controlled by communists still. They were censorized, they were limited. 300 copies of first Fables is the first magazine, homosexual gay magazine in Poland, on the typing machine done, so as you can see, appeared. And then in 1990, so shortly after we regained our independence, Lambda, the first Polish nationwide organization, was registered. Then also the first books appeared. The books I read were those books. I knew from these books that there is another world and another life is possible. So I read those books with my communist mentality. First magazines appeared, lots of magazines. In today's Poland we have only one gay magazine. Look how many of them there were in the 90s. So there was no internet, of course. But the need of knowledge, the need of contacting each other was so strong that people wanted to meet each other. They felt finally, they hoped, finally we regained freedom. We have something what we dreamed about. What a disappointment they had afterwards. But at those times they thought, finally, it happened. So they were reading a lot. They were trying to get in contact. Also because during communist time, there was nothing like that. When gay guys wanted to meet, unfortunately not lesbians, they were going to the cruising areas. Some of you might be aware of that. There are cruising areas probably also in America still. They could go to toilets. Very intimidating things which especially for new generation, might seem unimaginable, but those were only places where again a gay man could meet another gay man. There were no newspapers at these times. And first coming outs, people thought that they can finally be free. So Marek Barbasiewicz, very famous at those times in 80s, in 90s, actor, he came out as gay. He was the first, this was the first public coming out. Then he denied. When he noticed that, that he has troubles because of his coming out, he started to deny he's gay. He wanted to come back to the closet, which is a unique thing. I would never come back to the closet, but he wanted that. And that famous Izabela Filipiak, a legendary Polish writer, still writing. She recently writes a very interesting book on death. And so Izabela Filipiak did her coming out in 1998, when the homosexuality was not in the mainstream discourse. It was very tough to talk about that. And she was brave enough to do that. And here we go to something what created a huge backlash in Poland. And we come back to my story now. So when I dreamt about leaving my town, I left to big cities. And in those big cities, I've noticed that the gay guys I dreamt about, they're still in the closet. They did not dare tell their name. They were afraid to talk, to go to media. They were afraid to go on the streets. They did not want the things I was reading in the books. And I was very surprised, because I wanted to live my life like all other people live. Now, I joined Lambda, and in Lambda they were focusing mainly on psychological help, HIV and AIDS prevention. But when I asked them, should we go to media and talk about equality, LGBT, sorry, not existing at this time, homosexual rights, they did not want to do that. So I had no other choice, and I established with my friends, as Julien said, Campaign Against Homophobia, which was the first Polish LGBTI organization, which was porte-parole for LGBT milieu and partner for our society to finally come out of the closets and talk to the Polish society. And our first campaign was Let Them See Us. In 2003, we launched a campaign, not a long time ago, so it's a very young movement. 2003, we launched a campaign when 15 gay couples and 15 lesbian couples came out of the closet. They keeping hand in hand and trying to get into dialogue with Polish society. It was shocking for Poles. They could not understand at this time why they are, I don't know, they're showing off, obnoszą się with their sexuality. It's private. You should not tell anyone. It was also voiced by LGBT milieu. People within our LGBT milieu did not understand it. We had a huge backlash that people were denying it. They were saying it's a private thing. We don't want to talk about that. We don't want to fight for equality. It's not a legislative issue. It's a private matter. The politicization of sexuality worked very well all around the globe, but in Poland also. So when they were trained not to tell, they were following the training, not to tell. And so these brave people were on the billboards and in exhibitions. And the billboards lasted only a few days. They were directly destroyed by strangers. The exhibition places which were showing, some of them were shut down, exhibitions were destroyed, but this was the cost, the worth cost of coming out, because it provoked a debate. It invited people in this matter for the first time to have a debate on LGBT people in Poland. And at the same year, we had first gay prides. For the first time, and I remember that because I joined this first gay pride, there were 300 people. It was quite a lot in Warsaw. But then, slowly, year after year, with the gay prides band, we had our gay prides band in 2004 and 2005 by Lech Kaczyński, the former mayor of Warsaw. So we mayors, we have some bad tradition too. Then the president of Polish Republic, who died in this terrible plane accident in Smolensk, he was banning the gay prides. But we went to Strasbourg, and it was another success because we won. We won, and for this time, not only for LGBT, but for everyone else in Poland. We had a judgment where it was stated that the mayor cannot ban the peaceful demonstration. And what was important, and the court in Strasbourg has underlined, that politicians who use inflammatory language should refrain from this language. And it was addressed to Lech Kaczyński, who was calling the gay pride a danger to society, and that perverts will walk on the street and there will be danger to our family. So he was called to refrain from this language. Why? The Strasbourg court said that we are the role models. We shape the opinion. We influence the opinion. So when the mayor is homophobic, then people have a mandate to be homophobic too. And in today's world, it's very important. So first gay prides, but also homophobia appeared. I was accused for a long time that because of what I'm doing and my friends are doing in Poland, we are creating homophobia. Many of my friends who are gay, they say, Robert, because of you, we are afraid, because you started the discussion. Before, there was nobody attacking us, but there was nobody also talking about us. They're not mentioning that. So they were very unhappy with that situation. I rarely now meet these kind of statements, but at this time it was very popular. It was a backlash. It was a meeting of two worlds: people who wanted freedom and equality, and people who wanted to preserve, stop something what they thought is good. And so they went on the streets. And they still are on the streets, less and less, but they are still on the streets. And they were very unhappy, of course. And they were provoked by politicians. At those times, in 2004, 2003, 2006, you could see the mainstream politicians making terrible homophobic statements. And they knew that it pays, because majority of Polish society would agree with them. And this is a symbol of the discussion. Many of Poles know Julita Wójcik installation is a rainbow which was installed in the city center of Warsaw. A beautiful rainbow which was for several times under fire. It was a symbol of meeting of two worlds, of a backlash between two realities. As I said, one progressive, fighting for human rights, for dignity, for equality and freedom, and another world where the fear of losing something, of being in danger, went on the street, and symbolically they put the rainbow in fire. Finally, this installation was removed from the place. And this is me. When I was doing all these things, I was very naive. I thought when we invite people for discussion, politicians will change, like the society changes, and Polish society changes in this field. And politicians will follow the society, and they will introduce legislation which will be equal for everyone. I thought if society is electing politicians, then society is electing politicians which will follow their attitudes, their changes, and it didn't happen. So I thought, I will run to the parliament and I will try to change the legislation myself. And that's what I did. I ran to the Polish parliament in 2011, and I was elected the first openly gay MP in Poland and Central and Eastern Europe. But in addition to that, I was running with my colleague, who is on the left of my side of the picture. We were sitting together in the parliament. Anna Grodzka, who was the third elected transgender MP in the world. So a great successful Polish democracy. I was elected in very liberal, progressive area for Poland, in Gdynia and Słupsk. It's quite liberal. But Anna was elected in Krakow. This is a fortress of Polish Catholicism, tradition, and she was elected in this city. What a surprise. Poland is full of these kind of surprises. And I will show you. So this was the news. And when I was elected, I thought when I will be in the parliament, I will change a lot. And I changed a lot. But the first meeting was a big disappointment. The same day the parliament met for the first time, I went to speak. Imagine how important it was for me and how stressed I was. I could not sleep whole night before. I had to propose the candidature for the Marshal of the Parliament in the whole Parliament and defend it. So I was defending bravely, and at some point when she was attacked, because it was her, a Polish feminist by the way, I used the sentence that your arguments are below the belt. And they were all laughing. And I did not understand why they are laughing. So I repeated, your arguments are below the belt. And they were again laughing. I look behind me and I've seen that the head of the parliament is laughing too and is not doing anything. So then I understood, because they were questioned afterwards by media why they are laughing. They were laughing, they said, because they thought that when gay man talks and he says the arguments are below the belt, then he talks about sex. And I show you this situation, it's recorded.
To były stwierdzenia poniżej pasa, które są niegodne tego parlamentu. Proszę Państwa. Z tym poniżej pasa to chciałem Państwu wytłumaczyć, że zbyt często Państwo zaglądacie poniżej pasa ludziom, a zbyt rzadko myślicie o ich prawach i o ich godności.
Donald Tusk. Yes, yes. So, what a surprise. This is, the most important place in Poland, probably, I think. So I was surprised by this reaction, of course, but it gave me strength. I had also to, I was forced also to work harder, to prove that these stereotypes are wrong, that being homosexual doesn't mean I'm not competent, I don't have any knowledge. And I understand now women, why women in politics are being regarded as less competent, with less competencies, less knowledge than men. Because what we do is we look through our gender, sex, sexual orientation, our disability, race, but not through our competencies very often. And I could see how my female colleagues had to work 3 or 4 times harder than my male colleagues in the parliament to prove that they are good enough and they deserve being MPs. We don't have to do it as men, straight men. It's not me, but you, if there are any straight here. Why? It's not because of your competences, because I've seen in Polish parliament many incompetent men. Only because of these few centimeters you have. You have this mandate not to work as hard as we have to do. And I think it's completely unfair. So, at the end of the cadency, me and my transgender colleagues, we were elected the best members of the parliament. This was a great success for Poland. So, I'm not in parliament anymore. And you know the current story with Poland. We are ruled by conservative Law and Justice Party, which has its own style of ruling, which for many might be similar to Orban in Hungary and Erdogan in Turkey. And Kaczynski, who is the head of this movement, Law and Justice Party, is not hiding that he is being inspired by Orban. And he has completely other perspective on LGBT rights, as his brother has proved in the past. And also rights of women and other minorities. And recently, the new legislation on abortion was introduced, banning almost completely abortion in my country. Addition to that, a woman conducting abortion, doing abortion, will be sentenced to imprisonment up to 5 years. So, talking about civil movements, the new civil movement appeared. A movement which for many of us was a big surprise, because we thought that opposite to LGBT rights, where people, and we could see it, changing their attitudes from homophobic to open and tolerant and acceptable, abortion rights and the abortion in general has become more and more delicate and difficult to discuss, opposite to communist times when abortion was quite legal. And then it seemed that it will be very easy for conservatives to pass the legislation which will completely ban abortion. But it didn't happen. Happened something what not only surprised us, but surprised conservatives. Hundreds of thousands, mainly women, mainly young women, recently went on the streets and showed their disagreement.
Earlier this year, an official message was read out in all Poland's churches. On protecting the lives of the unborn, we cannot continue with the current compromise, which allows abortion in 3 types of cases.
Abortion in Poland is illegal except in cases of severe fetal abnormality, rape, and danger to the mother's life. Heeding the Church's words, ultra-conservative groups drew up a bill that would remove 2 of those exceptions.
Our bill bans abortion for eugenic reasons, which is what is currently practiced, and when the pregnancy results from a crime.
On Monday, Polish women appalled at the proposals called for a strike. Those who could not afford to miss work expressed their support by wearing black.
I'm angry that this idea is even on the table. It's all my friends and I talk about lately.
The strikers took their anger to the offices of the ruling party, Law and Justice, or PiS, whose MPs have sent the bill forward for further work.
Our politicians don't have a clue what they're subjecting women to. And not only adult women. I'm 17, just like my friends here.
The law we have today is backward enough, but what they're proposing is simply medieval, the Bronze Age.
Poland's ruling party says it will soon put forward a new, less radical abortion reform bill, but any tightening of what is already a restrictive law is likely to meet with resistance.
So this was a big surprise to all of us, a positive surprise. But it also, again, did something what is very important. It put us in solidarity. It united people who would never, ever before come out, who would join the pro-abortion or anything in common with abortion or on women's rights manifestations. Our enemy was so clear that we joined that. The protest was so massive that in my city, which is over 100,000, in this non-participatory society, where only 9% of Poles participate, are members of an organization, 20% participates in any public event. In my city, 1,500 people appeared at the manifestation, the biggest manifestation in the history of my city after 1989. 67 women did not appear this day in the city hall as workers, as employees, because they wanted to paralyze my city hall in the protest against the abortion legislation. And it was paralyzed. We could not do anything in our city hall without those women. And I fully agree, and I was so happy that I could not do it, because finally, we could see that the world without women will never exist. So it was such an important moment for me also as gay to be in solidarity with women, to see that there is connection, because I remember also the times when feminist movement in Poland and all around the world was reluctant to lesbian rights. They did not want to have anything in common with lesbians. They say, no, we are not touching this topic, it's too sensitive. Many of the feminists were saying that. And it was a big surprise for LGBT movement, that they don't want to be in solidarity. And finally, we stood together and we showed that we are in solidarity. But then there is another important phenomenon in Poland. It's called, many of you are familiar of Committee for the Defense of the Democracy, led by Mateusz Kijowski, who is very charismatic, and has done something what seemed to be unimaginable in this non-participatory society, where only 40% of people go to vote in the recent elections, where people don't trust each other. Only 10% of Poles trust others outside the family. It seemed to be unimaginable that so many people can unite against something. And the committee has done so. And I show you another movie of they protests.
Thousands of opposition supporters in Poland have protested in Warsaw against what they see as the government's alienation from the EU and flouting of democratic rules. There's been a wave of protests since the ruling Eurosceptic Law and Justice Party began tightening control over the country's public broadcaster and highest court, following its landslide election victory last October. The reforms have prompted an EU inquiry. The leader of the civic platform, which lost power, said, "We're together here today to say we will not allow the nightmare of authoritarian rule. We won't tolerate the violation of democracy, the rule of law and the constitution." The protest brought a counter-demonstration organised by religious, conservative and nationalist groups. Under the slogan "Poland has courage," they called on the government not to give in to what they describe as cliques who can't come to terms with losing privileges they enjoyed under the previous administration.
I think this was very important. Why? I think this situation brings us opportunity to unite and to show that democracy is not done forever. And this is what many polls and many people around the world, they don't seem to realize. The democracy is so fragile. Then you can make once a bad choice during elections and you can destroy a lot. And some of them might be irreversible. And people seem to understand it more and more. I remember the times when Donald Tusk, when I was in Parliament, he was saying, oh, those LGBT rights, the feminists, all these human rights, we don't have time for that. We are busy with building stadiums, highways, schools, airports. Don't mess with us. We don't have time to deal with abortion and other things. But Kaczynski and his party was very consequent on dealing with that. He was fearing Poles with gender ideology. He was fearing Poles with gays, waiting on the borders, with refugees who will rape our Polish women and will take over our jobs. He was very consequent on the field of ideology. And now, Tusk and Schetyna and all these oppositional leaders, they have their eyes wide open and they say, what happened? We built new highways, stadiums, airports, and you're not electing us? Why should they elect them? If they are afraid of refugees, gender monster, gays, feminists, refugees waiting on the borders, they should not elect them. People don't understand democracy because we've not invested in them. We've not invested in their knowledge. We've not invested in the things which are so important, and without them there won't be democracy. So I'm very optimistic. Because of these protests, because of this lesson which we as pro-democratic politicians, we are going through this fast course of democracy, I think Poland is still on good tracks. The hope also comes from my city, where I was elected. This was a second test for me, and I was elected. I will show you the movie from this.
The election of Poland's first openly gay mayor has been applauded in a country known for conservative Catholic values. Robert Biedron, already a national MP with a small left-wing party, won a runoff vote in the Baltic town of Słupsk. Polish media say several other local election candidates came out in what's been called the Biedron effect.
Unfortunately, none of them succeeded. Unfortunately, because still I'm the only gay in the village, which is very hard. And this is the swearing.
Stwierdzam, że prezydent miasta Słupsk.
Jeszcze raz, panie prezydencie. Wszystkiego najlepszego. 5 lat jest ważną i piękną częścią rzeczywistości. Przyszłoroczne obchody 25-lecia samorządności. Konkretnych problemów na osiągnięcie konkretnych celów.
Czyli sobie w wyborach. Tylko wspólnie, mając do siebie... Od dzisiaj, od teraz zaczyna się nowy etap w historii Słupska. Oficjalnie rozpoczynam moją pracę w urzędzie. Chcę wyraźnie podkreślić wszystkich, dla których najważniejszy jest Słupsk oraz jego mieszkańcy i mieszkanki, zapraszam do współpracy. Wytrwale dążył do tego porozumienia. W tym celu, szanowni państwo, drodzy mieszkańcy, nareszcie zmiana, nareszcie działajmy razem dla Słupska. Dziękuję bardzo. This is the way I went through, from this little kid in Polish Krosno, somewhere south, to the mayor of the city. But there is still much to do. This is a map I call a map of sin, of shame. A map which is rainbow, and I should love it, but I hate it. This map rates the situation in Europe. And the more red you are, the worse LGBT situation you have. And of course, on the bottom you have Azerbaijan, and on the top you have very progressive, which could be unimaginable 20 years ago, Malta, where they still have restrictive abortion laws. And Poland, unfortunately, has 18 points, which puts us on one of the last positions in European Union. Poland is in majority of the countries where we don't have, for example, registered partnerships. We don't have gender reassignment legislation, LGBT anti-discrimination legislation, where we don't have sexual education, where we don't have any protection against homophobic and transphobic hate crimes. So no surprise, we have this almost red color like Russia. But we are on good path, I hope. This is a symbol of today's Poland, unfortunately, and I hope this is burning rainbow. The rainbow was burned at the end. But I think there is hope for Poland, as I said, with the people who march on the streets. And I think the future of LGBT movement will be better. What I believe in are the leaders who have its mission and vision, who care that besides building airports and stadiums and highways, they believe in human rights, that it's equally or even more important than stadiums and highways. That human rights, and they see today that human rights, rule of law, in the context of constitutional tribunal, democracy, deserve every day's attention. Because they are like beautiful plants. If you don't water it every day, it will die. We should really care about that. So I dream about leaders who have this courage not to leave anyone behind. I've been in my life left behind for so often that I don't want to have experience that in the future. So I count now on your questions, on your reflections, and what is most important for a guy like me, your inspirations. You must have a lot of thoughts and inspirations which I can share in Poland, and I look forward to bring it from this distinguished university and this distinguished audience. Thank you very much.
it on now? Yeah? You can hear me. We have time, about half an hour for questions. We have people with microphones on either side, so raise your hand and we'll pass a microphone down to you. And it would be very helpful if you could state your name, and if you're a student or a member of the community, if you could just say who you are. It will be helpful for
Thank you.
Robert.
Thank you. Raise your hands. I look forward for spicy discussion. And don't pretend you are tired of my presentation, because I don't believe that. First.
Thank you. I'm Drew Waller from the Michigan Theater down the way. And I want to ask you first, why did you exit the political arena? And then secondly, because we represent foreign film and art house film, are there films that you would recommend from Poland that you would want people to see in the LGBT arena?
I don't get your last part of this question.
The second part is art film, foreign film. Would you recommend any from Poland for folks to see that properly represent or could think about the LGBT movement from a Polish perspective?
Film,
cinema.
Film, cinema. Okay. I was mentioning why I came into politics, because I was exhausted of knocking to the doors of politicians which were not opening. I was fed up with that situation. I was begging them, asking them for paying at least a little bit of attention on human rights, on the rights of newly appearing movements like LGBT rights, feminists, women, atheists. And I was surprised and disappointed, especially that within my family, I was growing up in the family when my father was a Communist Party member and my mother was fighting for solidarity, in solidarity movement, fighting for freedom. And I knew her friends who were dreaming about freedom. And I hoped that when they got into power, and they finally did, finally they will fight for freedom and equality. The slogans and solidarity, the slogans they were so proud of. And what disappointment I had when them standing with the flag called Solidarity with big S, the solidarity with small s, was such a difficult task for them. They used these big words, but when they were tested for solidarity after 1989, they rarely were keen to do it. What a disappointment. And it was the reason. I thought if not they, then I must act. And I had only one life, like all of you. And I didn't want to live in sin all my life. I had to change it. That's why I entered into politics, and I hope the things I've done in the parliament will rest and it will influence also others, also filmmakers. There is one filmmaker who is doing the movie, documentary on that. It will be inspirational for others, like I was inspired through these books and other people. The movies, there are plenty of movies. My mother cries when she watches Brokeback Mountain. She loves Brokeback Mountain. Maybe because we come from the mountain area. Or maybe that she sees her son in this movie. I don't know. But she loves that. Milk is very popular in Poland. There are other movies which are very popular, and they went mainstream. They became very popular. I was growing up with Dynasty, the series, with Steven. You remember? This was the only gay I could see. Anyway, yeah, there are movies, but there are so plenty. I remember times when the movie Priest in 90s was tried to be shown in Polish movies, and it was banned. There were huge protests in front of the cinemas trying to ban the movie Priest, talking about homosexual priest who was Catholic. And this was too much for 90s Poland. we would not have it anymore in Poland in this context of LGBT rights. But probably if you show a movie on pedophile priests, you would have a lot of protests in Poland. This cannot happen. Anyway.
Hello, my name is Ian Bretcher. I'm a sociology PhD student here. I have two questions. First, I was wondering whether you think these tensions against these minority communities has anything to do with economic and inequalities in Poland and kind of class issues and kind of class inequality, and also just what you think the ability for various NGOs and minority groups will be, like feminists, Jewish communities in Poland, LGBT organizations, to kind of work together to try to overcome these issues. I asked you before at lunch, but I'll ask you again now.
Yeah. I had met this guy before. He inspired me, like some others I met here, and I'm very glad for that. And I look for inspiration, so if you have some answers on these kind of questions, please do so, because I don't have answer for your question. Because it's a weird situation. Polish society is getting richer and richer. People can afford for more and more. So from this perspective, you would be surprised why they vote radical populists. Not because of economical reasons, probably. I think this is mainly because they are afraid. They are afraid of unstable world, that everything is unstable, questioned, there are no strict rules anymore, they think so, and this uncertainty of tomorrow brings fears. And then then populist politicians use it. The campaign of Law and Justice was mainly focusing on refugees. They were fearing Polish people of refugees, that they are waiting on our borders and whether we should let them in or not let them in. And of course, Polish people say no in great majority. So I have a problem answering this question. I think we should, it's not one or another. I think it might be connected because we are also post-communist society, so people like that the power takes care of us. So the benefits, social benefits, the Law and Justice is giving now 500 zloty, which is a famous Polish benefit now, social benefit, plays its role probably. But I think we pay the price for not explaining people what democracy is. We are not reliable anymore as politicians too, because our power is gone. We have less and less power as politicians. I was in the parliament and I could see how Polish government is fighting for investments. Nobody cares. The big companies don't care. They dictate how it should go. And we, on the knees, we beg for investors. We give tax reductions, we give green fields, we give low pay for workforce. We do everything for them. Walmart is 26th economy of the world, with bigger budget than Hungary. Why should they care? They can do whatever they want. It comes with other big global companies. So this is a complex issue. Many people don't trust anymore politicians because they see we are powerless. I beg investors to come to my city. And they dictate the conditions they come, not me. Because people need to work somewhere. And if I don't have investor, my city will disappear one day. So we should, I would call for brave decisions of politicians. The other politics is possible. I believe in that, but not in this old-fashioned way. And I think Hillary Clinton and all these pro-democratic leaders, they should do everything to formulate a new agenda for the world with reconstruction of these also international institutions, rethinking of the traditional model of the state, rethinking of involving new groups. Why politicians why only politicians from the party list should be elected, while less and less people participate in political life, in party life? People tend to organize in different ways. People want to have different than party solutions for political participation. And politicians should give them answers. If not, people will be disappointed. And they will elect populists who will say, I have easy answers for you. I can answer any question you have. It's so easy. I'll build a wall and there won't be any more these Mexicans coming to America. I will send off all these refugees. They say it all over the world. It's not, you don't have, Trump is not the only one. We have them in Poland, in France, in Netherlands, everywhere. They have easy answers, but I don't think they have solutions. So let's think about the model and rethink it. There is a hand.
You kind of alluded to it at the end right there, in that we've allowed the narratives in politics. Can you wait?
I can't hear.
Sorry. Yeah.
Too
Sorry.
far.
I think you kind of nailed it on the head right there. And I do a lot of, I'm Christopher, and I'm in the School of Public Health as a PhD student. And I do a lot of my work in Eastern Europe, Southeastern Europe of ex-Yugoslavia. And not just there, but I also, you kind of made note of this in regard to our election here in the United States, but globally, we've allowed kind of this rhetoric to seep into our electoral processes, not just here in the United States, but Macedonia is doing the same thing, Serbia, same as well, all of Western Europe. So when you then try to shape a democratic process, particularly in Poland or ex-communist countries, and you have kind of the examples happening now in the US and Western Europe, how can we tell Eastern Europe, like how can we work with Eastern Europe to try and shape a democratic process when we have kind of essentially lost our own democratic process over the years? And so, I mean, this is kind of a battle that I've encountered.
We can't. I agree, we can't. No one can. Because we are not, none of us is reliable anymore. We lost the trust as politicians, we politicians, because we don't give you solutions anymore. You find solutions in Google. You find solutions in Uber. You find solutions everywhere, but not in politics, more and more often. Because we lost the power, and we're still losing it. We pretend that we can control the situation. Look at the refugee crisis. Look at the climate change, austerity, poverty. Who is solving this problem? Are those national congressmen who have solutions for that? No. In Germany, in Austria, in Hungary, those are people who are uniting themselves or self-organizing, local governments who are organizing, and they give solutions because politicians need to discuss and prepare legislations, projects, and then discuss again, and then after 3 years maybe they will get into some consensus if there is no veto like in UN. So there's a reality. Benjamin Barber, who probably inspired many of you, Professor Benjamin Barber says that because of that, we should give mayors more power. Thank you very much. Why? Because we are practical. We know where the problems are. Because we are with communities. And we can take decisions much faster than politicians in Warsaw, Washington, Paris, London, Moscow, and anywhere around the world. Much faster than politicians in European Union, Council of Europe, and I know what I'm talking about because I am a member of Council of Europe, or United Nations. The problem is that we are so fanatically sticked to this old fashion of politics that we don't see that another politics is possible.
So my question is also along these lines, and I guess I was thinking about I'm Scott from history. I was thinking about the Turkish disease and this problem of all of these anti-Europe movements and right-wing movements here as well that are able so easily to cash in on nativist sentiment and to tag our side, if I could call it our side, the human rights agenda that you've outlined as a foreign import, as a West European imperialism or even American imperialism. And I wonder if there are have you used or does anyone have any strategies to claim as some kind of local or national heritage a tradition of pluralism, of tolerance, of sexual openness, even specifically relating to sexuality or other forms of diversity? Are there rhetorical strategies or kind of product packaging that you can do that will break that story?
Thank you for mentioning that, and thank you for this question. I think it's very important. Agnieszka Graf, who was here, she was giving a lecture. She's a big fan of introducing our patriotic symbols into our discourse. We should find a space where people like us were open and not stick too much to white and red flag or the Union Jack or whatever, that people like us should find the way how we will address the agenda which is still patriotic and involves our tradition. It's very difficult for us, but you could see the movie showing the committee code with lots of Polish flags, white and red. When you watch Polish gay prides, people will have a lot of white and red flags. When the gay pride starts in Poland, we sing Polish national anthem, all of us. Why? Because we think this is the strategy. We are Poles. I'm proud. I was beaten up so many times because of being gay, also as a member of the parliament, which never happened after the Second World War that any member of the parliament would be beaten up. I was several times beaten up. So I could leave. My parents live in US. I could leave. I speak several languages. I could live anywhere in the world, but I stayed because I'm a Polish patriot, because I love Poland and I'm a Pole, and I want to stay. And I have the same right to stay like Kaczynski, all those nationalists, all those people running around with Polish flags, singing these patriotic songs, because I'm equal and I have my equal rights there. So I need to find the paths. I'm saying I'm patriotic. They hate it. They say I'm not patriotic. You cannot be gay and Polish. There must be something wrong, as you say. I must come from Turkey or France or spoiled America from Stonewall or somewhere club. Then I think this is a strategy, and I agree with Agnieszka Graf and many others who say you should involve these rhetorics too, not losing our global perspective.
Hi.
Where are you?
Should I go
Over
first?
there.
Thank you. My name is Piotr Dworak, and I'm currently working at the University of Michigan Institute for Social Research. I left Poland in '98, and I spent more time here than I left Poland after before redistricting from 49 administrative districts to how many are there right now? There's like 9 administrative districts, I think. But my question was, I wanted to follow up on something that you said. So here in the United States, some of these issues that relate to civil liberties are delegated to states in the federal system, and also to communities as well. So they are brought a little closer to people. So right now we are focusing on national elections, but really the elections that will matter will be at the state level and the local levels. What is the analogy to Poland? Are some of these issues, can they be resolved at the local level, or at least pushed forward, further at the local level?
Thank you for this question. I don't know if you are aware, but you speak against Polish constitution. Polish constitution preserves the right for legislation on the national level and is, I think, prosecuting even any attempts of separation on this field. So, but I agree. If this was introduced to Poland, my voivodeship would have registered partnerships. We would have it. We would be welcoming refugees. I come from Pomorskie voivodeship, which is, she's happy she's also from there. It's very progressive. I mean, as for Poland, it's progressive. And we would adopt that. There are already calls, Open University, the Soros University in Budapest, there are thinkers who are calling for these changes within our national states, that we will share more power concerning civil liberties and other issues related to this, and go more into the grassroots, to regions. But, well, it's up to you guys. You are electing. You have the power. You should choose. I've never heard any Polish politicians doing that, proposing that. There's nobody who is brave enough, or maybe not thinking even about that, who would propose something like that. But I agree. Why not? I like this idea.
We have 3 minutes, 2 questions. Yes, one there first, and then you, and I would ask you to be brief, and then you can answer both of this. We'll take 2 questions, 1 response.
Madam Professor, I do what you ask. Thank you.
Magdalena Zaworowska. I haven't lived in Poland since 1987, and I work here at the university in the departments of American culture and Afro-American and African studies, so kind of far away from Polish patriotic literature. My question concerns your neck of the woods, concerns the local initiatives that perhaps Słupsk has introduced for communities, sexual minorities and gender minorities. Specifically, trans communities in these countries have been under attack and have been legislated against, and we have had backlash here as well against almost everyone who is a minority of any kind lately. So what is Słupsk doing? What you yourself has managed to introduce in terms of helping trans people, youth? It's a big problem, and there must be perhaps a migration towards Słupsk because it's a friendlier city.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that question. First of all, I introduce myself, and I think this is a role model. I think when I was growing up, I did not have anyone to compare. And now many young people write to me. They say, well, we admire you. We see that there is someone who was successful and gay. They don't have it often. So this helps a lot. And I tell you, I have a great difficulty with introducing LGBTI agenda in Słupsk. Whenever I travel, and I speak about LGBTI issues, local media attack me for that. When I travel and I speak about people with disabilities, women, even refugees, they never criticize me. But when I go and I talk about LGBTI, they always criticize me. They say, you were not elected for doing LGBTI issues. you were elected to do the city issues. And they don't regard LGBTI as part of the city. They think this is somewhere abstract. Maybe in Warsaw they are. But I do things. I introduce as the only city in Poland diversity charter, which is a charter designed within the European Union framework and is introduced by companies and local governments around EU, promoting diversity. And this charter puts LGBTI in the agenda. So we were the first city to do it, and now we conduct workshops. No one had in Poland workshops on LGBTI or discrimination ever. We had in Słupsk. So my colleagues at work, they learn how to be sensitive and conduct non-discriminatory policies on LGBTI issues. And I see the reaction. Recently, for the first time, we employed a openly transgender person. She moved from Dolny Śląsk, another part of Poland, to work in Słupsk. Why? Because she thinks this is a friendly environment and she feels safe in Słupsk. So we do that. We do quite a lot of other activities, but I'm very gentle with that because I don't want also to feed homophobes with all these stories. So we do a lot, but we are very gentle. I'm being questioned on every single assembly of the city council about LGBTI issues. When we prepared now strategy for the coming years, it has 400 pages, and it was discussed for 1.5 years with citizens. It was written by citizens, the first strategy in Poland, not prepared by the company, but the citizens of the city. We are very progressive. And then when I introduced it to city councillors, they attacked me for one single sentence. The sentence which says, we should introduce the solutions which are in accordance with EU resolution on equality of men and women. And they refuse to accept the strategy because of this sentence. Why? They say it's gender ideology. It will open the door for promotion of homosexuality and gender ideology in Słupsk. This is the reality.
One last question. Actually, hi, my name is
Hi.
Maggie and I'm from Gdynia. I'm talking pretty loud.
Strong
I'm from
voice.
Gdynia. And I'm glad I am last because I didn't want to ask you a lot of questions. I just wanted to express my feelings about you. And I think I represent a lot of people and tell you that we admire you for your courage and that you never step out and stop fulfilling your dream ever since you were a little boy. And you always fight all your life for things which are right, and I hope you never stop. And I have Polish TV here in Ann Arbor, and I watch the news which are very grim and very depressing on an everyday basis. And then I see Biedroń coming time to time on the screen, and you are just like little ray of sunshine. And I say, if it would be those people over in Poland, those politicians, even a little bit like you are, and as a good people, just good human beings, and I admire you also for your fight for animals and being really active in animals organizations. And Poland and all the world, America too, would be a better place. And I think people are so sick of political establishment nowadays. And all what is going on in the United States nowadays, I also think that it's a lot coming out of fear, and people are animosity toward the today political elites. So they want the change, but they don't see the change can come together with the old establishment. So I hope they don't make this mistake. Anyway, we want to thank you very much. I hope that one day you will be president of Gdynia when Mr. Szczurek talks. And next an Albert, maybe. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, this gives me wings. I feel I can fly now. So, and I hope you can fly after this meeting too. You have a lot of strength. Thank you.
End this evening. So thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.